The National Organization for Women is the largest, most comprehensive feminist advocacy group in the United States. Their purpose is to take action to bring women into full participation in society, sharing equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities with men while living free from discrimination. In June 1966, 28 men and women met in a ballroom at the nation's capital to discuss women's right policy. When they find out no real action would be passed at this meeting, meaning nothing would happen there, the delegates were outraged. Later that day at lunch, the 28 delegates applied their names to a napkin that had been passed around. Thus, the National Organization for Women was born. This day, June 30th, 1966, Betty Friedan, the author of the famous Feminine Mystique, was named president of the newly formed NOW. Although sexual discrimination was outlawed in 1964 by the Civil Rights Act, many women felt there was little or no enforcement of the law. The National Organization for Women sought to fix this feeling of indignity, and from 1966 until now have had a loud voice in the Capitol building. In 1967, at the organization's first organized convention, members chose to focus on the Equal Rights Amendment, repeal of abortion laws, and public funding of child care. But the Equal Rights Amendment remained a major focus until 1980. Throughout the 70s, NOW organized marches trying to mobilize support and also organized boycotts by organizations and individuals of events in states which had not ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. NOW also focused on legal enforcement of the provisions of the Civil Rights Act, specifically Title VII, which barred discrimination in employment on the basis of race and sex. At the same time, it established the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to investigate complaints and impose penalties, and in 1968, the EEOC ruled that sex-segregated help-wanted ads in newspapers was illegal. This ruling was upheld in 1973 by the Supreme Court, opening the way for women to apply for higher-paying jobs, hitherto open only to men.
Yes, sir. Each one weighs 300 pounds. The ice, not the girls. And every day, in every way, poor man is pushed further into the background. They're Betty and Isabel Van Heusen, and they're helping their father. He can't work on account of illness, and so they've become the world's first pair of lady icemen. They handle the whole thing themselves, and they know how, too. I wouldn't advise anybody to get fresh with them. Couldn't they give you an icy stare, though? And talk about a cold shoulder. It's tough on the poor cook now. She can't entertain the Iceman in the kitchen anymore.
NOW was so successful that on March of 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was passed by Congress and was sent to the states for ratification. This amendment stated that equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on the account of sex. But sadly, the amendment died in 1982 when it failed to achieve ratification by a minimum of 38 states. But that same year, women were granted the right to be enrolled in athletic programs in professional schools because of Title IX of the Educational Amendments, which banned discrimination in schools. In the 80s, NOW endorsed presidential candidate Walter Mondale, who nominated the first woman candidate for vice president of a major party, Geraldine Ferraro.
1984 was the year of the woman in politics, as Walter Mondale knew when he chose Geraldine Ferraro to be his running mate.
I'll never forget her walking up to the podium in that white suit and saying,
"My name is Geraldine Ferraro.
Women were excited all over the country, and it was fascinating to watch men, especially who have these little girls, daughters. They'd bring them to rallies and put them on their shoulders, or they'd be yelling, "I want my daughter to grow up and be president."
NOW also added activism against policies of President Ronald Reagan and began being more active on issues of lesbian rights. NOW also filed a federal civil suit against groups attacking abortion clinics and their leaders. This resulted in a 1994 Supreme Court decision, NOW v. Scheidler. The suit was filed against Joseph Scheidler and other anti-abortion protesters and organizations which were members of the Pro-Life Action Network. The case was argued before the Supreme Court of the United States on 3 separate occasions. Supreme Court ended up ruling 9-0 in favor of the plaintiffs, saying that The RICO law itself was not clear on the issue of monetary gain and that the NOW could proceed with a lawsuit under the RICO statute. Basically, NOW won. Today, NOW focuses on 6 priority issues: advancing reproductive freedom, promoting diversity and ending racism, stopping violence against women, winning lesbian rights, achieving constitutional equality, and ensuring economic justice. They spread their message about these priority issues by educating the public and media about the status of and threats to women's rights, organizing rallies and protests and demonstrations and marches of all sizes, protesting businesses that mistreat women and people of color, lobbying for and writing laws that promote full equality for women, registering new voters and inspiring them to get to the polls, recruiting and electing feminist candidates at all levels of government, initiating and supporting lawsuits against violators of women's rights, demanding fair and unbiased court and judicial nominees, and working in coalition with progressive allies. The current members of NOW believe that together we create the change we've been dreaming of. Our unity is our strength. The time is now or never.
Bye-bye.